I got to sit over here. I might need to sit down a little bit. Got a lot of little nervous energy going on here, trying to figure this out. You guys are putting a lot of pressure on me this morning, and for those of you that might get a little distracted, I got to keep my notes in front of me so we can follow the screen, because that was a cute, nice illustration of acceptance, wasn't it? It sounds so warm and fuzzy, and I tend to flip that shit on its ear and give you an insight into me and how I move and how my life has transpired, and how the greatest thing for me out of everything that I've been through was to gain some acceptance, right? So let's start off like this before I do the housekeeping. How many of you, by show of hands, have done something that at one time or another, if the circumstances had been different, you could have gotten in trouble? That's everybody, right? Just about. Second question. How many of you know someone or related to someone, whether it be a cousin, an uncle, a nephew, a brother, a sister, who's been in and out of prison, who's off drugs, who has all these struggles? That's just about all of you. And all you want for that individual is to get it right. That person you're thinking about right now, I'm what that looks like. So that's our connection right here. We'll start from that space. Good morning. I'm Darryl Riley, businessman and entrepreneur, nonprofit founder and CEO. Welcome to Creative Mornings. First, I want to give a shout out to Alana and Vibe Coworks. I made the connection with Alana through her kids, if you could imagine how that went out, and I'll let her talk about that. Also want to give a shout out to Rachel. Let's give Rachel a hand. Rachel, Rachel's working really hard to trying to push this in a way that will help. And I got to tell you, I belonged to a business group a while ago that did something similar to this, and it could change your life as a business owner. It could help you identify where you want to go. A little bit of housekeeping, like we normally do in these parts of the country. Normally, when I go to events or places, we do a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge the fact that we are walking on stolen land so I want to do a land acknowledgement in my own way, but I want to offer a little swag with it, if you don't mind. So, my land acknowledgement to the native ancestors and the people who this land was stolen from is in the form of my native inspired socks. So I'm really walking on stolen land. About me, a little bit you talk about in my bio. I grew up poor, tough neighborhood from Chicago. A lot going on in the 80s with stop and frisk. 16 years old, first summer, got a job. We go out and we hang out for lunchtime. Me and the guys, a couple guys get into a scrap. They get to fighting. Next thing you know, the cops show up. And before it was all over, everybody had 3 felonies, right? Just a fist fight, where you two would have probably, hey, go home to your parents. So that was my first sign of acceptance, that at 16-year-old, I got 3 felonies. I didn't know what that meant, but I knew I was scared because I was a child. And the next month after that, one of my mentors from the church, no knock on the church, took me somewhere and introduced me to freebase cocaine. So at 16, I'm smoking freebase cocaine, and I got 3 felonies. And I don't even know how to urinate without peeing on the toilet. So I had to figure out what acceptance was real quick. Through that, I didn't always do that. I went to school and built a life for myself and got married, but there was always that drug thing that I struggled with. And I struggled with that thing for quite a while, in and out of incarceration. So I took my first hit of cocaine at 16. I took my last one at 40. Just let that soak into you so you can understand how I move, how I think, my mannerisms, the things that bother me. You just said you know somebody that's involved in this stuff. So I want you to always think about that. I didn't desire to go into that. I didn't choose to start doing drugs. And I don't blame Johnny for even introducing me to it, because it turned out to be one of the best things that could happen to me. I graduated magna cum laude from Sidewalk University with a PhD in hustling in the streets and a minor in knuckleheadism. Well, actually, that was a major. And, you know, those experiences, I always try to surround myself with people that are smarter than me. If I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room. And seems like this is fitting today. I'm in the room with people who are a whole lot smarter than me. So thank you for keeping it to that space. Today's topic is acceptance. And I had years of in and out of prison and struggling with drugs and so forth, but a paradigm shift did occur. And today I own 3 businesses. I'm a master barber, nonprofit founder and CEO. Just call me Mr. Doing Too Much, you know. But I never thought I'd be in this position. I got out of prison trying to get a job, and we'll get into that a little bit more. I don't want to get too far from the topic. Next slide, please. So all of us have been. Most of you are business owners in here, right? So we're going to talk about the mind of business owners as it pertains to acceptance. But by a show of hands, how many had career aspirations as a kid? Right? Everybody want to be a doctor. Everybody want to be a lawyer, Indian chief, whatever it is. I got a friend that told me she wanted to be a dishwasher when she grew up. So that was a childhood aspirations. And I had childhood aspirations too, just like everybody else. But unlike most of y'all, I'm living my childhood aspirations. Because all I wanted to be when I was a child was alive. So I'm living it today. And I'm excited about it. Every chance I get up, I get a chance to say, look, Mom, I made it. You know, it ain't about the businesses for me anymore. Next slide. Well, let me ask you questions. Back to that slide, let me ask you a question about childhood aspirations. Did any of you ever think you'd be business owners? So when did you get some acceptance that you wasn't going to be that doctor, that you wasn't going to be that lawyer? How did it affect you? How did it affect you when you got shocked like you did? And you didn't know it would transform your life. When did you get to that point of acceptance? How did that feel in your body? And that's just rhetorical for everybody. No need to answer. Next slide. So acceptance, we're going to look at it by definition, right? Remember, we're trying to flip it on its ears. Acceptance, by definition, right, is the act of consenting, the process of being received as adequate, or either approval. So according to the definition, can anybody, just 1 or 2 people, tell me the common theme you see in all those different definitions? You don't see it?
External.
How about this? Action. A verb. You're required to do something in each one of those. So that tells us that acceptance is a decision, right? We got to make the decision to accept it. And a lot of times we don't want to do that. Acceptance can actually lead to freedom, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But acceptance doesn't necessarily mean I agree. It means that I made a decision to go into it, to give it an opportunity, to see if it might be a chance to work out for me, or how I could add value to it. And that's our job as leaders and as business owners. You're not going to make a lot of money in business. It's not about all the money. The more you make, the more they take. So as business owner, you got to figure out what your overall goal is. Because for me, I got to a point where it wasn't necessarily no more about the money that I was making, because I didn't feel comfortable having money in the poorest district in the county and everybody around me broke. That wasn't success to me, because I've been broke before. I've been homeless before. That's why I don't like camping. I can't see paying money to go be homeless. See, acceptance for me screwed me up a lot of times, and probably you too. You ever ate something later on in life that you hated all your life before? You said, I'll never eat that. I was like that with clams and oysters. I never even tried them. I just chose not to accept it. I'm not finna eat that. That looks nasty. You know, who wants to eat that? I was ill when I see somebody eating them. But when I tried a clam, oh my God, changed my life. You know, in fact, I just had some clams like a week ago, you know, and I made a decision to accept it, at least give it a try. I took some action. That's what acceptance is. Now, back to the original warm story they gave out acceptance. That is taking action. So I agree with it in that auspice. I cheated myself by not even giving them oysters a try. And I'm sure a lot of y'all have done something too. You'd be like, damn, I should have been tried this. Next slide. So the opposite of acceptance. What happens when you don't want to accept something? How does it feel to you? You get mad. I ain't messing with that. I ain't accepting whatever it is. Your body goes through something and you deny it. Your first thought is to deny it, like I did them oysters, without even giving it a chance, without even giving it an opportunity to see if it's cool. You know what denial actually means? Who don't know they lying? That's cognitive dissonance. When you choose off the muscle not to accept something, and 9 times out of 10, you don't even have the information or the facts to even make an educated decision. You're just going off what you feel, deny. You're entitled. I also think the definitions that we put up for acceptance create a lot of entitlement. Who are you to tell me I got to have your approval? Who are you to tell me that I got to wait for you to accept if things are okay? Who are you to tell me that my business won't thrive? So I see entitlement in the definition at all the way through, but we want to flip it on its ears as business owners because most of these things don't work for us like that. You know, I can guarantee you, let me tell you something about my life if you're a business owner. I'm going to tell you something about your life and your business that you know is true. We go through every emotional possible every day. You get a chance, I'm finna quit, I'm doing great, I'm ready to die, I'm going to get a job every day. So you understand the downhills and trajectories that the average person doesn't even necessarily have to deal with. Get some acceptance about that, because the larger you become, the more trouble it's going to have. Where's the young lady I was talking about? She has the online store and she wants to expand and get a greater warehouse and all that. Well, get ready for this emotional roller coaster that comes with it. Running a business is like running a daycare. You know, I don't care how many employees you got. They could be the best employees, but when you get a lot of people together, you got to learn how to manage them, and it takes time. It takes acceptance. You know, I got to accept some people and accept some ways of some people if I want my business to thrive, even if I don't agree with them, even if I don't like them. You got to keep the main thing, keep it about business. Next slide. Acceptance. Are you having acceptance, or are you just accepting? Let's examine this. I asked a person this morning how they was doing, and they said, I'm good enough. I said, no, you ain't. You just accepting. That's not acceptance of who you are. That's not acceptance of why you're trying to go. That's not acceptance of your trajectory. Because as a business owner, your goal got to be for the moon. And even if you don't catch the moon, you're at least going to shoot for the stars. You can't quit. At least you're going to be up there. At least you're going to be ahead of most of the population. You guys are blessed to be in this position to be able to call yourself a business. That's important. That's proud. That's pride. I know Crystal, she's all over the place. Everybody knows her. Sometimes I'm more proud of her than I am of my own business acumen, just because of the professionalism, you know. So let's examine this. What's he doing? He's accepting. He has not gotten to the point of acceptance where if he grabbed the key, he can unlock the gate and free himself. But he chooses to be accepting. You know why? Because acceptance, we talked about it. It's a verb. It requires action. It comes with a responsibility. If he take the key and go out the door, who got to feed him then? There you go. So he'd rather be accepting than to get some acceptance. Anybody know anybody like that? Just accepting any old thing. So that to that person this morning, I can't accept that you good enough. I can only accept that you great. Because abracadabra is a real word. I speak what I create. Next slide. Anybody ever seen this? They call it the serenity prayer. Yeah, right? Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, right? Well, I disagree with this premise on this part. Because I could accept something no matter how horrible it is. But my overall focus can be to change it. And I got the perfect example. So, got out of prison, 44 years old, just done 40 months in prison. And I'm starting to look at life differently. I got less years left than I had going into this thing, so I got to figure this out. Got a job the first day. I was the proudest dishwasher they had, and I started accepting myself. I started trying to repair my credit. And I was looking for jobs, probably with some of y'all folks at the post office, at the warehouses. But my criminal history represented who they thought I was. And everybody denied me a job. And I would call home and talk to my brother. And he gave me the best piece of strong medicine and advice that changed my life. And I had to accept it. And I'm going to say it like he said it. So if you got sensitive ears, you got to hold on to this. He said, big bro, you're a motherfucking career criminal. He said, nobody's going to hire you. He said, the only way you're going to succeed is if you build your own shit. I never thought about that. I immediately went into hustle mode. What can I do? Where am I sharp at? Well, I used to be a barber in Chicago. And I said, well, I'll get in barber school, right? Because now I done accepted the fact that ain't none of y'all going to give me a job. That's the hardest thing for a person who struggle with these jails and prisons, to accept that society looks at you in that way. But I had to swallow that with no chaser. and I swallowed it. And I went to work. So I got in barber school in Bremerton through Olympic College. I kept my dishwashing job. And I was starting to date this lady at the time. And I asked this lady, I was like, it's hard when you're a man and you're trying to get on your feet and your girl's in a little bit better shape than you, and you got to go to her and ask her for some money. Mind you, I'm over 40. The hell am I doing asking somebody to loan me $100? But I was after some acceptance. So she loaned me $100. I went and bought me a lawnmower. Because not only was I going to go to barber school, I was going to wash dishes, but I was going to cut your lawn on the weekend if you'd let me. At over 40 years old, hustling with that PhD in the streets. And by the time I got out of barber school, I had enough business that I could walk away from my dishwashing job. And I can cut hair 3 days, which you saw in the first picture in the shop, and I can do lawn care for 3 days. And that started working out for me. And that little bit of acceptance fueled me. It fueled me. Just swallowing the worst part of who I was, accepting the worst part of what society said I was, and that was a career criminal. That hurt. It used to hurt. It don't hurt no more. Because I got some acceptance. So I'm not accepting of anything. I have acceptance in everything. Because I have the wisdom, I have the courage, and I have the serenity to know if I can change my mind, I can change anything. And changing your mind begins with acceptance. I had to learn to accept my hardships, man, for what they were. That was hard hearing that, but I love my brother for that. That was the best piece of medicine for me. Next slide. So because of that acceptance, and I don't know how much time I got, I don't know where I'm at on the clock, but because of acceptance, I introduced myself as a businessman and entrepreneur. But because of acceptance, I'm no longer a businessman. I'm a businessman. And I employ 15 people that I'm responsible for. And I couldn't be prouder of that situation. But I also have to accept this, that every morning when I go look in the mirror and I look at this black suit that I got on, I know that I'm going to have to come across somebody that you know. And I'm going to have to experience 1,000 cuts of racism. And most of the time I'm going to have to act like it ain't there or that it don't bother me. Because you know what? Your people are going to say, he's angry, he's aggressive, he's threatening. But I got to smile and act like you didn't just disrespect me and act like you didn't just make me feel, or you didn't clutch your purse like I was finna snatch it when I probably got a net worth of more than you. You know? So, but I have to accept that every day. I have to fearlessly go in the mirror. So if you know any men of color, we all have to do this. We all have to walk in every morning saying that we know some shit is coming. We know something is happening. When I sit in spaces and it's only people of color and the weirdo shit starts to go on, we get some acceptance and we both like, we don't even have to know each other. Am I lying, Greg? We don't even have to, am I lying, my brother? We don't even have to know, we don't even have to know each other to feel that bullshit coming. And we have to gain some acceptance quick, or it'll cause us to have to code switch. It'll cause us to have to be re-traumatized all over again. So I would say to you all, in closing, my charge would be accept the challenges in business. You know, find you a mentor. Find out what's hurting for you. And don't be afraid of tough message. Sometimes accepting the toughest medicine can be the best cure. Because see, if I died today, they ain't got to lie at my funeral. You know, they can say, all they got to say is he turned that shit around. That's all they can say. They can't say he's a crackhead no more. They can't say he's a criminal more. My rap sheet don't matter. I don't even want my record expunged. I want you to take a look at it. So it'll give you a trajectory. So when you think about that person who you know is struggling with these issues and you don't want to accept them no more, just think about me. I was over 40 before I got it right. And if they need a job, tell them to holler at me. So I appreciate you all. I thank you all. I hope I didn't confuse any of y'all. I'm not a victim, by the way. I'm not a victim. I survived all of that. I took all the power back from that by gaining some acceptance with no chaser. So thank you.
We usually go into the Q&A, but I was also reading that and make it a conversation. So if you have questions,
Oh, I'm sorry.
and reflections, let's continue the conversation.
Any questions for me? Yes, ma'am.
Could you tell us a little bit about your nonprofit?
Well, actually, that's a good question because, you know, around the riots, everybody was starting nonprofits. You probably know somebody got a nonprofit. And for me, realizing that I'm not a victim, realizing what financial literacy and thing has done for my life, I thought about what would happen. Well, here's how it came about. I was reading a book called Up From Slavery by Booker T. Washington. And in the book, they talked about how newly freed slaves, in their struggles, in less than 50 years, they had Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Well, we have way more than they had in 1865. And I didn't want to approach the nonprofit from a place of victimhood. Poor me. Give us what you can give us. We're victims of slavery. No, the fuck I'm not. I'm a business owner. So I got with a couple of business owners in the community and we developed this nonprofit and we decided to focus on 3 areas that wouldn't make us look like victims. We want to be about empowerment and creating pathways of freedom. So financial literacy, wellness, and a little bit of racial justice. But that one can be tricky. But 70% of our problems as people of color have to do with not having the money and not knowing what to do with it when you get it. So if we can solve that and we can maintain our wellness from these triggers that we get by well-meaning white people, but they re-traumatize us in certain situations and we got to figure that out. If we can tackle those 2, the rest of it is a cakewalk. We figured if we could teach financial literacy as much as they taught about Jesus, where would our people be? And that's no knock on Jesus or to the people that believe in that. But so we started this nonprofit and it's been rolling. It's been very successful. We just had a second annual summit on race with Michael Eric Dyson was our keynote speaker. A lot of you were here, and we've become a beacon in the community. And it's not for us. The fuck? No, it's not for us. We're not operating from that space. We're powerful people. We've survived for that. Most of us, our families and our ancestors have built this country for free.
What's the name of it, Darryl?
It's called the Up From Slavery Initiative, after the book. It was a little tough at first because when I said it to people, we wanted a response. I wanted you to say, oh, what's that about? Or, oh, damn, what's that about? That's the response we wanted. It goes down a little easier for people now when they say it. It rings off. They say Up From Slavery. It's like, oh, they doing A, B, and C. So, in a nutshell, I don't need you to pity me because I'm a person of color. I don't need you to pity me because of the racial justice. I need you to act. And if you don't know how to act, I got a lane to show you. So that's kind of what Up From Slavery is about. Any more questions? Yes, ma'am.
I forgot your title as a Mr. I do too much. Why don't you say a little bit more about Post-Prison Podcast?
Yeah, so I had been thinking about, I got a couple things going on as it relates to ex-offenders and things that I want to do, and how could we get the message out? Because a lot of us have gotten out of prison and we've done extremely well. No, everybody that gets out of prison isn't horrible. They've actually created a word for it called recidivism, right? So they already expecting you to, they setting a turnstile up for you to come back. And we know that the prison system is based upon institutional slavery and free labor supported by the United States government behind the 13th Amendment. We know that our government allows for this to be legal. It's not about rehabilitation. So we wanted to speak on that issue. We wanted to speak on a light for that. We brought in people who've been doing well. We've had judges. We've had Carmen Best on. We've had quite a few people on to help us uncover some of these things and have substantive discussions. But not only prisons of confinement, some of y'all are business owners today because you were in jobs that felt like a prison. Or you were in relationships or situationships that seem like prisons. So we uncovered quite a few things as it relates to confinement. Because, see, I got some acceptance. And I also accepted the fact that I've been to prison too many times to be boxed in any place. That's my new acceptance. So the Post Prison Podcast is on Sunday evenings at 7:30. You can find us on Facebook or YouTube. And I suggest if those people that raise their hand about got somebody who's been through those things before, have them to tap in with us. Because we need each other. The biggest struggle for me getting out of prison and trying to get it right was the people who supported me or who should have supported me didn't. And that's usually when your person falls off. When they don't get, they be like, well, fuck it. Excuse my language, I'm sorry. So, yeah.
I can't help but think of how constant the act of acceptance is for yourself, and then to flip it for others. And like you're saying, that others might not accept you or the situation or whatever it is. And I mean, just to I don't know if I have a question or just another statement, but thinking about how it's an act to advocate for yourself and then understand how to respond and either remain in the situation or move on, right? I mean, can you say anything to that?
Well, I would say, for me, looking at all the business owners, here's what I will tell you. It does not matter where you're at today in your business. You're successful. Accept that. Accept that. It's a trajectory in this. Man, I'm like this every day. I want to smack somebody. I want to fire somebody. I want to quit. It's doing well. It's doing great. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just up and down. And I think that as business owners, we have to also understand that that's how this country's run. It benefits businesses. See, if you ain't got a birth certificate, a social security card, or a death certificate, I don't care how long you've been married. You ain't getting nothing until the government get their money. So you don't own your house. Think I'm lying? Don't pay your taxes. You don't own your car. Don't get no tabs. You can't drive it. So it has me accepting the things that are reality instead of trying to operate like this ain't true. You know, if you sleep with your eyes open, that's daydreaming. You guys are in business now because you stopped sleeping with your eyes open. I would just tell you to continue to believe in yourself, encourage yourself. You need somebody to encourage you or cheer for you. Ain't nobody to talk to, call me. You know, I could take a few minutes to talk to you and help you try to get through that space, because sometimes all we need is a little encouragement when we're having a rough situation. And it really ain't all that bad. We just haven't gotten to acceptance of it yet. It is what the hell it is.
I've got a question for you. What gives you hope in this world?
Well, that I can be of value. I'm accepting me. I ain't got to accept what nobody else do. See, several times a month, and a lot of people don't know this, several times a month, I get a call from people from the different churches, because I got a lot of connections with them, even though I don't attend as much, the black churches in the community. And what they'll say is, hey, Brother Darryl, I tried talking to the church this month, but they couldn't help us out. Do you think you can help us out? And I'll go talk to my wife and tell her what I'm getting ready to do. And I'll go on and cuff them $100, a couple $100 or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And I'll just keep it moving. That's my hope. It ain't on them. I accept me. What can I do? You know, because if I hope you going to do something, or if I hope you going to do something, you have the potential and the capability of disappointing me. And then what happens to my hope then? Yes, ma'am.
What is the best way to support people who are just coming out of prison?
Well, everybody might not agree with me. And I think I was just talking to somebody. Men, I don't care if you're gay or straight. One thing about the male-dominated brain, we have to feel useful. We have to feel useful. If we're not doing nothing, if we're just sitting around, we're gonna fail. Doesn't matter what your gender identity is. It's just the way that brain works. So for me, I think that a person only needs two things first. And that's a job and how to make some money so that they can feel useful. Because when you go into these prisons, the guys that have the outside classified jobs, the guys that get to go off, you know, when they're up there with their lunches packed, they have their clothes ironed, they're ready to go. Well, what I want to do is tap into that energy. I want to catch them. So we're trying to actually create a mechanism inside the Department of Corrections so that I could start vetting these people so that when they get out, I got a job and a place to stay for them. And then we'll add the wraparound service. I don't need trauma-informed care until I can figure out how to feed myself, because I'm re-traumatizing myself if I can't feed myself. Let's figure out how to put it together. This is a capitalistic society, and that ain't gonna change. So that's what it's about.
Awesome. Let's give them another round.
You guys are tripping. Sit down.
Thank you.